Now, back in the day, 2016, when Zootopia dropped in theaters, it kind of blew up. People really enjoyed, but they didn't admit something was off of the movie. Something was sort of muddled in between getting all the themes of racism and how them with a different type of races. But even that, people still enjoyed the film. But there were a lot of fans with the sort of furry community and also just fans in general of Zootopia loved it so much they decided to do their own version of Zootopia under AU Comics. And this is the interesting thing. Most of them were really good. Most of them actually surpassed the original, like Zootopia Sombra. It's something that really blew up in the community, but never went sort of mainstream that everybody talking about, like Zootopia I Survived Brazilian comic. That was a completely different beast, and misunderstand why people kind of went crazy about it. But to be fair, Sombra was actually better than I Survived. It's because it's something is so deeply interesting and decide to go in deeper of sort of the themes of the original Zootopia, but decide to do it a little bit different. How different? They decide to go completely a different timeline and a completely different genre ish. I mean genre, I mean subgenre, because instead of focusing on sort of a cop figuring out sort of a mystery, they decide to flip it around to make it sort of a lawyer trying to understand a sort of misfire case. They use Mr. Arlington as sort of a scapegoat, but no one really defend him. So Judy, the lawyer, who attempted to free the man and clear his name, but with the twist that you have sort of, I want to say, John Wick influence, and you make sense of it, because that's the best way to describe this comic. You have that sort of dark, sort of noir interest, but sort of Law and Order twist that give you fascinating, but not just that. Also, the relationship of Nick and Judy, the mystery of the murder. On top of this, the two different organizations are finding the soul of Zootopia, and Nick and Judy in between being sort of chess pieces for very logical, interesting reasons that you would surprise why they actually use them, and why people can confuse Nick as sort of the Baba Yaga of this universe. Of course, before I breaking down, my name is Rachel. I like to talk about animation, not just animation, the reviews, first impressions, cartoon theories, or sometimes, if I have some spare time, culture breaking news. Of course, you like how it's going, like to help my channel, put a like, comment, and subscribe. That's the only thing you need to do. If not, that's fine. You do. Thank you. Because of you, I'm getting close to my main goal of 2,000 subscribers. And yes, I'm getting close every single day because of people like you. People who like, comment, and share. Thank you. Now let's break down of this AU comic called Zootopia Sombra. Now let's get started. Now let's start with the creator Crocom, who actually written the whole story, but animated by two different artists, Wermer's Rebers and Boobity Bobbidom. I know it sounds strange, that's the best way I can say the names. But there is a reason why you two have two animators drawing this comic, because the first one was Wermer's Rebers. I'm struggling to say that name. That he was the first one who actually wrote the first act. I mean, animated the first act till he had to drop off. Because of this, a lot of fans were sort of wondering this sort of comic has been cancelled way too soon, because they're doing the same year they started. They have to slow down. But Concom sort of stepped up in Reddit explaining, no, it's the fact one of our animators have to step down because sort of responsibilities, and they just leave it like that for right now, but they are still working on the comic. But the only problem is they now have to sort of slow down and reschedule some of the work they have to do, because they're basically doing for a little while for free till they set their own Patreon. Now everything else was animated by Bitty Bobby Bottom. Yeah, I know I'm struggling to say that name, but that's the animator who basically took over and helped finish the whole thing. Even that this sort of AU comic was still going a total of 9 years and counting, and right now are Act 2 of this comic. In other words, you have around, I want to say, about 50 sort of chapters ish, if you will. It's so many chapters, sort of surprised in how many fans willing to give money to these animators and continue making this comic, because it is surprisingly really good. So good that you're wondering, I want this to be animated as a movie or a TV series. That's how good and interesting it really is. It's not perfect. It has its little flaws here and there. It depends on your own taste, but it is especially really good. On top of this is a really dark, mature sort of take of Zootopia, something between PG-13 and rated R. You could say it's mostly PG-13, but it does pushes it to the point you're wondering, you sure this is not rated R? It feels like rated R. And that's sort of the take they have of this sort of comic. Now, what is the full story and why people are so interested? Now, you follow basically the case of Otterson. Do you remember in the movie, he was sort of disappeared and became savage? They decided to make it something interesting. That this time, this version, Otterson actually became sort of a murderer who got pinned that something he didn't do, murder of his own wife. That the cops came in, saw him stabbing his wife full of love and passion, and arrested him. But the only problem is, Otterton in this version, he's a very valuable and beloved council member in the government of Zootopia. And the Zootopia government wanted to help, but the only problem is it looks bad if they helped. So they let everything went down how it is and let Otterton take the blame, even that he didn't do it. Because of this, no one wanted to defend Otterson except for an outsider called Judy Hopps. And this is this thing. Zootopia is sort of banned bunnies to go into them to protect them not get hunted and hurt in the city. But he feels that was sort of a racist move, make a law to get rid of all the other bunnies. Because of this, all the races are scared they'll be next in the chopping block to basically remove of the city. But this is what Otterton comes in. He's the one in the very beginning wanted to let go or remove that law or make new sort of programs little by little let bunnies to go. This is the thing a lot of people are wondering. This was the case to get rid of him because they want to remove the law. Because of this, the government allowed Judy Bunny to defend Otterton, but the only problem is they can't really help her to be protected because when she steps in the city, this is the first time she actually was attacked. This is the reason why they want a sort of bodyguard for Judy. And this is a twist. No one wants to help her because it was too dangerous and you won't survive. Even that Judy calls every single specific program to actually have bodyguards or sort of protection to help her, and everybody rejects her help because it's too difficult to protect a bunny like the Zootopia city. But except for one, that be Nick Wilde. Now, Nick is completely different depicted on this new AU. He's not overconfident, sly fox who con people, but yet it is part of his personality, but they twisted a very interesting way. Because Nick, in this version, he kind of was the Baba Yaga of this universe. But not the same way as John Wick. You could say it was sort of inspired by it, but did a different twist to make it interesting. Now, what do I mean make it interesting? Well, when Nick introduces himself and actually give help to Judy, Judy is sort of uncertain to understand why. Because he did not ask for money or any other favor. In fact, he makes a point saying, "This I don't want to give me payment or sexual favors. For sooner or later, I figure out what do I want for a payment. For right now, I will protect you." But Judy is sort of doubting that, like one mammal can defend a bunny, but when the thing shit the fan, Nick pulls up and shows you why he is so feared and dangerous, and why nobody want to mess with them. Even that, nobody really knows where Nick actually come from. He's sort of a ghost. He appears, unappears when necessary, when he's needed, but always defending Judy. But I love it is sort of the interesting sort of relationship with Nick and Judy, sort of questioning like the movie, like have that sort of interesting personality of, let's say, the cute word, that's sort of a kind of racist word in the Zootopia, and they talk about it saying you sort of over exaggerated of the word cute. Cute can mean many things. Doesn't mean it's owned by bunnies or come from bunny anyway. And that's sort of the conversation you have in the comic. They have multiple sort of conversations of how Judy being so so positivity but not seeing the truth, and vice versa to Nick being too serious and paranoid to see the truth of the situation. And that's what makes it sort of interesting, especially Nick, because we don't know enough about him. In fact, they sort of play around linking little things. Who was Nick till they decide to, around the last 20 chapters of the final first act, revealing he used to be a gangster for obvious reasons. I won't go deep in the detail. The only thing he sort of have sort of the Batman backstory that his parent was killed. He doesn't know why. He went to Spiral, went to train, and the rest of it sort of went ghost. It do explain deeper in that, but that's what's sort of interesting because Judy wants to know more, also, and the fans who reading of this version of Nick, because Judy wants kind of in a relationship, and that's the other thing that grabs your attention: the relationship of Judy and Nick. Were they or were they not stay together as relationship? And that's what makes it so fascinating. And that's because they don't want to officially be together. It's the fact both of them are sort of professionals. One is a lawyer, and the other one is sort of bodyguard slash gangster slash anything dark in the dark corners. He makes people disappear. But the reason why they won't is because of Nick. Nick really doesn't want to have a relationship, but at the very end he does, but he's more realistic. He basically put it at, if it happens, it happens. Do not force it. And because of this, they have moments of sexuality in the comic. One tempting the other, having no clothes, half naked, someone wearing a shirt and showing their own panties. That's sort of sexual tension to see which one breaks first and actually have a sexual arousement. And that's sort of the interesting thing about this comic. They really portray sort of relationship with a couple. Doesn't matter straight, gay, or bi. That sexual kind of desire with the other person. And that is just very fascinating because it's super mature but not childish. They actually have very mature adult conversation, like how you met Nick. Did you sit with them? Do you know who he is? And ask, if you want to know who he is, why you should not ask him. And that's sort of deep sort of thought of a conversation with other adults you have when you're growing up, understanding the other person. And I think that's one of the things that make this so interesting and also make it so much better than the original movie. On top of everything else, you also have this other subject matter that grabs your attention: the councilwoman and also the staff members who elect the councilwoman to sort of take over the city. They're not truly evil. It's more like how they decide to handle the situation of Zootopia. Definitely the councilwoman who is the big picture, who obvious she did not get elected by the people to take charge. In fact, it was the council people who chose her to deal with sort of Nick and Judy sort of situation. But yet, making it more interesting, there is another force inside Zootopia who were trying to lift Judy and Zootopia and get rid of them because they changed the status quo. And these two members, the councilwoman and the other group members, are specifically foxes who want to take down Judy because they changed the law. They changed the thing they liked to get rid of other mammals. Now we're sort of a racist group, but yet they never describe them racist. It's all about your interpretation of the acts of this group of people. These people are basically full of foxes who hate bunnies, but we don't know they just all foxes or only most of the group are foxes. Once again, it's sort of your interpretation, because at the very end, the sort of racial tension with bunnies and foxes would be sort of between whites versus the blacks, Mexican versus Spaniards, Chinese versus the Japanese. That sort of attention racism, you've been there, seen it, you are interpreted that way, but yet we don't know much about them. They are a threat. They keep harassing Judy and the other members, but they do very little. They repair when they need to be repaired to get rid of Judy, and Nick is there to defend them. But the only problem is the true groups who try to use Judy and Nick as pawns, they are realizing they are not pawns. There are individuals who believe of the justice system, and they will fight back to defend themselves. And that would make it sort of interesting. You don't know if Nick and Judy will be manipulated, used, or vice versa, use them to get what they want, to have justice. And this is the thing they graph you so much, how the world is built, how not just the world is built, how the group members sort of idealistic contrast of the other idealistic sort of perspective of justice and control. Because you have a moment with Judy and Nick topping a councilwoman on top of the whole, say, building with this sort of thunderstorms, talking about idealism, what's wrong, what's right, how to manipulate the society, and questioning this is the right thing or wrong thing to do it. And that's just sort of fascinating. It's one of those things you just want to know more about this world, especially when the Councilwoman has sort of a right-hand man who eliminates everyone who dares to challenge her and erase them in the shadows. And yes, they do have a lot of gangster situations, a lot of 007, sort of Baba Yaga, sort of John Wick sort of situations make this comic so endearing and interesting. It's one of those I like to call a page turner, because you can't change the page to see what happens next. But unfortunately, it's not perfect. It does has its flaws, like the animation or the art is pretty incredible. They do that sort of Pixar sort of realistic background and animals sort of cartoony perfectly. But the only problem is how they sort of boarded the whole thing. Like 99% of it is perfect. That one rare 1% is sort of slightly off, specifically of action scenes. When they do a movement, you are kind of confused, but yet you understand it. But you have to you have to stop and look of the art to understand how the characters turning, how they defending themselves. It's readable, but it give you a second to really think about it, how they try to explain that action. They only happen to me twice, but that's the only thing it happens, because it's the very beginning. After that, it does it better. But all that, the art is incredible. It's the reason why a lot of fans love this comic, because the animation, how they draw it, how they move, is completely gorgeous. It's almost like this done in professional version, or at least an official version from Disney. It feels that good. But all of that, the beginning stages are kind of perfect, but kind of rush or second doubt itself, because some of the pacing, it also a lot of garment sort of jibber jabber. When I mean garments, think of it sort of Law and Order that I said at the very beginning, because at the very beginning, Judy is asking questions of the sort of the case, what happened to Utterson, of who's there, what time, where's the paperwork. If you've seen a Law and Order show, you will get the same thing here with sort of a John Wick mystery twist of that. It is interesting, but some chapters it's just pure conversations. Some of it is super intriguing. Others, I kind of wish they shortened it. But once more, it depends on you what type of detective show, Law and Order, or NCIS type of version you like. If you like that kind of stuff, you know what I'm talking about. This will probably make it for you so much, or downgrade just a bit because you have to really with it because it's a lot of dialogue. But other than that, I completely love this comic. It is interesting, fascinating. On top of this, it still goes on. Believe me, 9 years and counting, they're still making comics. But interesting enough, the comics went a little bit more slower nowadays because they wanted to make it more grander, more bigger. Almost it feels each single chapter is sort of a episode, a 20 or 30-minute episode sort of thing. You think of it sort of a volume for a manga. That's not as super thick, but it's sort of kind of like a comic book with me about probably 30 pages or 10 pages each that trying to grab your attention. And that time it completely worth reading and waiting when they decide to show it because it's completely worth it. In fact, if you want to read some of the comics, go to their Patreon and they have it everything there. Or if not, you could go in their DMR sort of area. They have it there too, but it's sort of misordered, so you have to dig, search. You have to know how to use the website to find what you're looking for, or go find it on YouTube. There are about two or three different channels focusing on all of this Zootopia comic, sort of dub, not dub, or just sound, seeing the chapters if you want to see it. But all of that, I do highly recommend it. It's for a reason why people adore this comic, wondering what's going on, why they use Arlington as a pawn in the situation. Even that you can't predict the situation, but how it is executed grabs you. But on top of this, they have actually extra bonus using old characters from Walt Disney to bring here. For example, their version of Robin Hood, they do have it in this comic. He is part of the story, but not yet used. He's sort of a future story coming out. When he reappears, the story becomes a new arc. Basically, that's what I'm saying. They like to use old Disney characters. When you see them, you know it. But all of that, I really can't say much. Just one thing. Do you know they exist? Do you like it? Even that Master Warrior, it's pretty long. It probably will never end till the artists get tired of it or they stop paying them for Patreon, one or the other. But it's completely worth reading and it's not yet completely done. Other than that, that's all I can say. What your opinion? Do you know they exist or not? You love it, hate it? Tell me down below, let me know. I got nothing else to say. Just thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.